Welcome and good morning, everybody. Welcome to today's Warren County Veterans Court graduation ceremony. On behalf of everybody here in the Warren County Veterans Court, thank you very much for attending and participating and commemorating with us the one graduate we have today from our program. We've put together a nice program, and we're going to commemorate it in a special way today. I'm joined here in the front, of course, by our commencement speaker and also by our graduate. And they'll be introduced in due time here in just a few minutes. But let me begin by recognizing some distinguished guests that we have. Retired Air Force Reserve Judge Advocate General's Corps officer and fellow judge here in Warren County, Judge Joe Kirby. Thank you very much for being here, sir. And you brought some of your staff, included one who used to be our program manager, Jessica Coffey. It's good to see you, and welcome back to the Warren County Court. And everybody from the Probate Juvenile Court. Judge Marty Hubble from the Lebanon Municipal Court, who has executed a memorandum of understanding with us to identify veterans in his court who are interested in having their cases supervised by the Warren County Veterans Court, is here. Judge Hubble, welcome. It's good to see you again. Judge James Sheeran from the Middletown Municipal Court, our sister court over in Butler County, is here. He operates a veterans court in Middletown, and he's here with his court administrator, Mr. Steve Longworth. Gentlemen, welcome, and thanks for coming today. Members of the Warren County Veteran Services Commission are here as well. I know Mr. Kilgore, I think, called in sick this morning. He couldn't be here today. But gentlemen, thank you very much for your support of our program, for being here, including the executive director. Thank you for your attendance and participation this morning. I've been told by the staff, and I'm looking around to see if there's another person here this morning, and that is I extend the invitation in writing to all of our previous graduates to be here. And I think the last time in August when we had a graduation ceremony, we had 3 show up, and I'm just scanning the audience here to see, there he is in the very back, Mr. James Allen. Welcome back to the Warren County Veterans. Mr. Allen graduated from the program last August. It's good to see you again, sir, and thank you for coming and following up on that invitation. We're also honored to have with us today previous commencement speakers at these graduation ceremonies. Dr. Purcell Taylor. Dr. Taylor, thank you. The retired Air Force Chief Master Sergeant Greg Rush. Greg, it's good to see you again. Thank you. And Jody Puderbaugh. Jody is here. Jody is the granddaughter of Pee Wee Martin from Band of Brothers fame, and she was a speaker for us a while back. So thank you for being here and attending as well. Next up is an addition to our ordinary or regular ceremony that we have commemorating the graduate or graduates that we have. We've inserted a true story that signifies really the commitment and sacrifice and spiritual devotion of military members from World War II. It's known as the 4 chaplains. Chaplain retired Brian Blankenship has agreed to give this presentation. Before I call him up here, let me just introduce who he is. He didn't want me to do this, but I'm going to do it anyway. He's a retired active duty Air Force chaplain. He's currently a member of Village Council in Waynesville, and he serves as a pastor at Lytle Methodist Church here in Warren County. Shortly after we began the Warren County Veterans Court program in 2015, Chaplain Blankenship volunteered to become a peer mentor for our court and mentor a veteran or veterans who have volunteered to have their cases supervised by the Veterans Court. And he served in that capacity, not only here, but also across the street in our sister court in the Warren County Common Pleas Veterans Intervention Court since that time. So with that, I'm going to turn the floor over to Chaplain Blankenship.
Well, thank you, Judge. Colonel retired Loxley. My sincere congratulations to John on his graduation today. And thank you all for making it to be here this morning. That's just fantastic. What a wonderful program this Veterans Court is, certainly. And of course, we know it doesn't stop with graduation today. All of us stand ready to help you. We're just a phone call away. Don't ever, ever forget that. I want you to close your eyes. I want everybody to close their eyes, and I want you to imagine the scene in your mind. It's dark and it's cold as the ship you are on, the Dorchester, plies the waters with about 900 souls on board. You're standing at the railing maybe, and you see your sister ships Can you imagine it? I can. I can imagine the turbulent waters of the North Atlantic, the salt spray, maybe some queasiness along with the rolling of the ship. And your fellow passengers and you are only about 150 miles from landing safely. And then it happens. The explosion as the German torpedo hits home beneath the waterline amidships. The ship immediately begins to sink. Some soldiers were killed immediately by the explosion. Others died of hypothermia in the cold waters they fell into. Others drowned. Of the 900 souls on board, only about 230 lived to tell the tale. Panic and prayers were everywhere to be seen and heard. But out of this scene, 4 brave men, 4 chaplain lieutenants of different faiths stepped forward and fought back what must have been their own terror and became heroes, pillars of strength, saving others and bringing some calm and hope to those in a desperate situation. You can open your eyes now. Witnesses later testified that the 4 chaplains individually were seemingly everywhere that night, offering prayer and calm and helping all that they could. They wound up together at the ship's life jacket locker, and they passed out those precious life preservers. And when there were none left in the locker, then each of them took off their own life vest and passed them out to the next 4 men in line. One eyewitness said it was the most courageous and selfless act he had ever seen this side of heaven. And then after they had done all that they possibly could, they locked arms and prayed as the Dorchester slid beneath the waves. The 4 chaplains, we honor our chaplain, First Lieutenant George L. Fox, a United Methodist. Chaplain, First Lieutenant Clark V. Poling, a Dutch Reformed Church pastor. Chaplain, First Lieutenant John P. Washington, a Roman Catholic priest. And Chaplain, First Lieutenant Alexander Good, a Jewish rabbi. I encourage you to look it up online. It's just an amazing story. There's videos and films and books and all these incredible things out there. It just was fascinating to look through those things. Interesting has been the country's reaction since that time. Each of the chaplains received, or their families received, a posthumous Silver Star and a Purple Heart. There was also talk of a Medal of Honor, but there's strict rules with a Medal of Honor that to be a candidate, you must have engaged with an enemy. So Congress came up with a special medal, 4 of them, and there'll never be another. And it's equivalent to a Medal of Honor. And they also issued a stamp that was made to commemorate their heroism. There are many celebrations, as we know, each year at this time. Every February 3rd, this past one was the 81st time that they've commemorated. And many times the American Legion Post and other organizations do commemorate the heroism and sacrifice of the 4 chaplains. There's a stained glass window in the Pentagon corridor, as well as in the Smithsonian and other places around the United States. Today, as we start our ceremony, this graduation for John, today we remember their bravery and their selfless sacrifice for others. February 3rd, 1943, 81 years ago.
Thank you. Thank you very much,
Delighted to be
Chaplain
asked you.
Blankenship.
Thank you so much.
And I should mention, too, that Chaplain Blankenship and his wife just got back yesterday from an overseas trip. So if he has a little jet lag to him, or maybe the eyes aren't as wide open as you're used to seeing, he literally just got back in town yesterday, but agreed to do this for us. And what a wonderful story. Absolutely wonderful story. If you're not familiar with the 4 chaplains, follow up with what Chaplain Blankenship just told you. Look it up online. There are books, there are movies, there are stained glass windows, Washington National Cathedral. I mean, there are so many all over the country and even the world about the 4 chaplains. What a wonderful story that is. And thank you for sharing that with us. I think an explanation of our court is in order for those people who haven't heard it before. But since December 2016, when the Warren County Veterans Court conducted its first graduation, this court has conducted 12 graduation ceremonies. So this is the 13th today, graduation ceremony recognizing those veterans or veteran who have successfully completed the program. Today, as I mentioned before, we have one distinguished graduate who is seated right here to my right. Beginning in 2015, the 1st of April of that year, this intensive probationary program was set up to assist and rehabilitate veterans who found their way into the Warren County court system. Each of our veterans is given an option a choice of whether to have his or her case transferred from the regular probation docket to the Veterans Court docket for supervision. It's a self-paced program. It's divided into 4 phases that uses all the medical, the clinical, and legal methods to essentially rehabilitate the veteran. That's the whole purpose behind our program. It's a minimum 1.5 years, up to a maximum 5 years of supervision. Of course, the goal of our program and for each of our veterans is to resurrect what I call redeemable qualities, and that's my term, redeemable qualities that we all know that the veterans have, and then be the productive members of society we expect them to be. I've said this many times before, but I'll say it again. Between the ages of 17 and 24 in this country today, how many ever millions there are within that age group, and that's the target population for recruiting for all branches of service in the military. But between 17 and 24, only approximately 23% of those individuals are eligible for military service. Less than 1 out of 4. 23%. That's a sobering thought when you think of it. Less than 1 out of 4. Yeah, you can apply for a waiver in whatever branch it is. Maybe you're disqualified initially for a law violation or something you did as a juvenile, and you can get that waived. But on its face, on its surface, it's just 23%. You have to meet those 3 prerequisites to raise your right hand and be sworn in and wear the uniform of any branch of service: moral qualifications, physical qualifications, and educational qualifications. And it's the physical requirements that a lot of people have problems with. So of those 23%, less than 1/4 of the eligible individuals, only 9% in our all-volunteer force, only 9% of those 23% have expressed an interest in joining the military. So this program is designed for that select group of citizens who've met the stringent requirements of military service to be sworn in and take the oath to serve in uniform to begin with, volunteered for that service, and then for some reason have encountered difficulty and wound up here in the Warren County court system. So why do we do it? Why do we set up this court? And by the way, I should mention too, this is done with 0 additional taxpayer money, nothing. It's all voluntary. It's all voluntary. All of these organizations here, all these peer mentors here, all these other groups that you'll hear about here in a moment, everybody volunteers. So there's 0 money, but it's volunteering for a good purpose. I think you'll agree with me when I say that. But why do we do it? If our veterans were willing to sacrifice for our community, then our community, I believe, through our court system, is willing to take the time and the effort to help them get back on their feet. Again, I call them redeemable qualities. We know that they're trainable. They've proven that over time. I'm proud, and all of us here in the Veterans Court are proud of our Veterans Court veterans, not only because of their service to the country's military service, but because they've not shied away from the hard work required, that time, that effort, that determination, that commitment to graduate from this program. Now, a vital part of the Warren County Veterans Court program are the contributions, really, of our peer mentors. I mentioned them just a moment ago. Our peer mentors are honorably discharged veterans from the community who go through fingerprinting, background checks. We have to get their DD-214. That's a certificate of discharge from active duty to prove that, in fact, they were honorably discharged veterans, and some small element of training. And they volunteered, again, to assist and marry up with one of our veterans or a couple of our veterans who are here in the Veterans Court. This is graduation day for John Loizo's peer mentor as well. Mr. Joe Worley, where are you? Stand up, please. You're to be recognized as well. It's graduation day for you, too. All right. Now, let me take a moment and introduce our guest speaker today. I met Mr. Morse when he was referred to me by a previous graduation speaker, Greg. Said, hey, I drove this individual, because Greg is a driver for the Veteran Services Commission. And if you don't know this, the Warren County Veteran Services Commission provides transportation services for those eligible veterans to go to medical appointments, whether they be local clinics, VA medical centers, Cincinnati, Chillicothe, Columbus, Cleveland. So Greg, we served together 42 years ago in the same outfit down in Hamilton. Isn't that amazing? It's a small world. And we didn't even know we lived in the same area until about 8 or 10 years ago. But Greg sent me a note and he said, I met this gentleman and I think he would be a good speaker for you. And I didn't take Greg for his word. No, I had to follow up myself. So I scheduled an appointment with Mr. Morse, and after the first minute, I knew you were right. So thank you for the referral. Mr. Morse and I talked for an hour and a half. We could have talked all day. And what a great person he is. And extended the invitation for him to be here today and share his story with you, and maybe even go ahead and combine that with a message for our graduating veteran and other veterans who are part of this court. But let me just introduce him. He's a retired captain from the United States Air Force active duty. He began his military career by enlisting in the Air Force in 1977. He was a flight medic, a helicopter flight medic, a course instructor, and evacuation unit NCOIC in places like Texas, North Carolina, Wyoming, and Turkey. In 1992, then he received his commission as an Air Force physician's assistant, and he retired from active duty in 1998. I don't want to steal his thunder because he might go into a little bit more detail, but he's been recognized and received numerous awards for his initiative, his foresight, his volunteer service. The recognition includes being at the White House and receiving the Presidential Citizens Medal from President George Bush at a ceremony held there in 2008. He's been named the Civilian Physician Assistant of the Year. The following year, in 2009, he's received the prestigious Paragon Award from the American Academy of Physician Assistants in 2012. He's also a member of the Ohio Veterans Hall of Fame class of 2008. I've already told you he came here from Vandalia, where he lives, and we're happy that you made it safely, sir. I turn the floor, and please join me in giving a warm Warren County Veterans Court welcome to Earl Morse.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you so much, and it's an honor to be here. What a privilege it is. Thank you for putting in a good word for me. I need you to talk to my wife later. Maybe you can work on her as well. One of the things that wasn't on the resume there was that, Earl is living proof that anybody can start a national organization. There is no IQ test, which is, qualified me to take on this challenge. And what a joy it has been. I used all of my military experience in the Air Force as being a medic, and then a flight medic, and then a physician assistant, and then working for the VA, treating my veterans. How many veterans do we have in here? Just a show of hands, please. All right. Put your hands back down. How many Air Force veterans do we have in it? My people. All right. Good deal. So, my dad was in for 20 years. I was in for 21 years. My grandfather, he was in the Army Cavalry. He shoot horses during World War I. Hanging out with veterans has been a joy. It has been a privilege for me for so many years. And of all the veterans I've ever met, there's a group that stands out. World War II veterans are the most humble, most appreciative, most stoic, most genuinely patriotic people you will ever meet in your life. And it was such a joy to take care of them. When I say they're humble, what I mean is when I talked to the World War II veteran, I said, "What'd you do during World War II?" I didn't do nothing." "What do you mean you didn't do nothing?" Every single one of them to the person. "Well, nah, I didn't do nothing. I didn't do much." You got to drag it out of them. I had so many veterans say, "I didn't do nothing." It's like, for crying out loud, somebody had to have done something, because you guys won the war. You girls, you ladies won the war. Somebody did something. So they're extremely humble, and they are so appreciative. Every single one of them was raised during the Great Depression. They know what it's like to go hungry, to have nothing. You do anything for a World War II veteran, they are so appreciative. And stoic, some of my biggest arguments were with World War II veterans. "Sir, you can't take your walker, okay? You can take your walker with you, but we need you in a wheelchair because we got to get through the airport. We got to get around the memorials. Please use the wheelchair. And for a World War II veteran that isn't ready to go in a wheelchair, you got a fight on your hands. Sir, please. And after doing honor flight now for 20 years, I've learned what you tell a World War II veteran. I said, all right, listen, you can continue to use your walker, but genuinely, you're going to slow down everybody, and you can use your cane. There's a chance you could fall. But let me just explain something to you. When you're walking through the airport, when you're walking around the memorials, when a man sees you in that wheelchair, a man will give you one of these, a sign of respect from man to man. When a woman sees you, you're getting a hug. If you're in a wheelchair, oh, you're so sweet. All right, let me see that wheelchair. So humble, stoic, appreciative, and patriotic, genuinely patriotic. I don't mean they cram it down your throat or anything like that, but you never, ever have to use the bumper sticker expression with a World War II vet. Hey, freedom isn't free. They know it's not free. They've seen the horrific cost associated with us all being free, with us all living free. They've witnessed it with their own eyes, a lot of them have. They're patriotic. So in May of 2004, the World War II veterans, my heroes, finally had a memorial. After waiting 60 some odd years, almost 60 years, they finally had a memorial. So I'm at the VA in Springfield, Ohio. Man, I'm seeing every World War II veteran in the waiting area slapping high five. Man, congratulations, you got a memorial. What do you think about that? And to the person, they said, that's good. I just wish my friends would have lived long enough to see it. I said, well, what about you? Well, yeah, I've been talking with the VFW post. I've been talking with my kids. We'll see what happens. That was in May of 2004. Because they're my patients, because the average age was 90 some odd, I would see them every 3 months, every 6 months, and everyone that would come in, I'd say, what'd you think of your memorial? Well, I haven't been there. And they knew after 6 months, they were never going to see their memorial. They weren't going to be wealthier next year. They weren't going to be healthier next year. Their family wasn't going to suddenly have more time to take them out to Washington, D.C. It was never going to happen. So when I'd say, have you been to your memorial? They would always break eye contact, and they'd look at the ground, and they said, nah, Ma, she's been kind of sick, and the kids have been real busy. It was never going to happen. Thankfully, as a member of the largest aero club in the nation, a private pilot, oh man, being a private pilot is fun. A little scary, but it's so much fun. My dad, like I said, Vietnam veteran, Korean War veteran, and Dad and I used to fly. He wasn't a pilot, but he was a fantastic autopilot. I say, Dad, hey, maintain this heading. Can you maintain this altitude? Sure, son, and here we go. We'd take off from White Pat. We'd go up to Cleveland. My dad is a diehard Cleveland Browns, Cleveland Indian fan. We'd fly up to the Cleveland Burke Lakefront Airport. We'd land. This stadium was in walking distance. I'm walking with my dad. We'd go over there. We'd watch the Cleveland Browns lose, and then we'd get back into the plane, and then we'd fly home. It was awesome. In the springtime, Cleveland Indians, we'd watch them lose and fly back. It was great. And I said, Dad, I've got about 300 veterans on my panel alone. They're never going to see the memorial. Would you please rent the plane with me, you and I, and we'll put some veterans in the back. And then I asked him, have you been to your Korean War Memorial? Have you been to Vietnam Memorial? No, he hadn't been. So we're all set, man. We're going to make this happen. I just hadn't asked a veteran yet. So you got to kind of work your way into this. And Leonard Loy, you're going to meet Leonard in a minute. Leonard Loy was the very first veteran I asked. I said, Leonard, you been to the memorial? No, I haven't. You got any plans to go? No. I said, here's what's going to happen. Then I had to ask this question. Have you ever flown in a tiny little plane? And I'm talking a tiny little plane. He goes, oh yeah, my Uncle Phil, he had a Piper Cub. I loved going up with him. I said, well, my dad and I we're going to rent a plane, and there's some seats in the back. And if you want to go, we'll take you to Washington, D.C. so that you can see a memorial. Do you want to go? I was waiting for Leonard to say yes or no, or let me run this past my family. I wasn't ready for him to start crying. And when he sat there in front of me and he's crying, all of a sudden my allergies flared up. I wasn't crying, but my allergies flared up a little bit. And I said, all right, let me go ahead and we'll get your name and your number. And I said, I'll give you a call back. We left the office. So the nursing staff, they see, Leonard coming out of the office, he's crying, and my allergies had flared up. And they had to rush around behind me and say, what happened? What did you tell Leonard? I said, no, it's not it. Leonard's fine. We're going to fly to Washington, D.C. He's going to see his memorial for the first time ever. And they said, wow, so that's great. There's 4 seats in that plane, right? I said, yeah. She said, so there's another seat? Yes. Her name's Sheila Wirtz. And she goes, well, then can I ask a veteran, a World War II veteran, if they want to go? And I said, well, there's kind of more to it than that. You got to get the weights and the balances and stuff like that. But yeah, go right ahead. 2 days later, I'm seeing another patient in my office, and there's this knock on the door, and I went ahead and opened the door, and there's Sheila standing there in the hallway. Her allergies had really flared up, man. She just going and crying, and I said, what, Shelley, what? She had only asked the second veteran. Only the second veteran got the exact same response. The emotion is overwhelming for these incredible men and women when given this opportunity. So I knew we were on to something. So I contacted the Aero Club manager at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, Ron Smith. 3-year combat veteran from Vietnam. He was in the Marines. And I told him, I said, Ron, can I do this? Do I have your permission? And Ron said, not only do you have my permission, he goes, I want you to bring it up to the entire Aero Club. 300 pilots out of that Aero Club. And I said, this is what I'm going to do. Only 2 rules. Rule number 1, the World War II veteran doesn't pay a penny. There's a reason why they come out to the VA. They come out to the VA because their life savings are gone. Their houses are gone. They're living in an assisted living someplace. And each month they had to decide, do we eat or do I take my prescriptions? They're flying for free. You folks are going to have to pay the rental fee. And rule number 2, you can't fly out to Washington, D.C. to Andrews Air Force Base and go hang out with your friends. You got to take care of the veterans all day long. I will show you how to take care of 70, 80-year-olds. I had 11 pilots who had never met my veterans who said, yeah, let's do this. That was in January 2005. We had planes, we had pilots, we're flying for free. We were all set. One of those pilots, his brother-in-law was a reporter for WKRC out of Cincinnati, Jeff Hirsch. And Jeff Hirsch calls me up. He goes, Earl, I understand you got this program. You're start flying veterans to Washington, D.C. I said, we are. That's our plan. We're going to fly in May. And he goes, can we go? Myself and my videographer. And I said, there's only 4 seats in the plane. It's like, this is going to be me and my dad and you 2 in the back, which means we got to kick off 2 veterans. He goes, yeah, that kind of defeats the purpose, doesn't it? I said, yeah. So he goes, all right, let me go talk to my station manager. And he kept calling me back, no, I don't think we're going to be able to make it. And then he called me back and he said, we're going to meet you in Washington, D.C. I said, that's incredible. I thought your station manager turned it down. He said, a young man from Cincinnati was killed over in Afghanistan. And he said, he's going to be interned at Arlington National Cemetery on Friday. You people are flying in on Saturday. We will be there. We're going to go ahead and we're going to cover this. The very first honor flight story ever, our very first trip was covered nationally. It went all across the nation. WKRC picked it up, and then CBS got a hold of it, and they said, hey, can we run this nationally? And they said, yeah, sure, fine. A little bit of backstory there. It was pretty cool because Jeff Hirsch calls me up. Like Memorial Day weekend, he goes, Earl, CBS, early shows, picking it up. It's going to run nationally. So this is Memorial Day morning. So I called all those veterans that were on the trip. And Willie Taylor, I said, Willie, you're going to be on national television, you know. And he said, oh, cool. I told them all. And, 3 months later, 4 months later, I see Willie Taylor, prisoner of war, captured at the Battle of the Bulge. I said, Willie, I said, did you see yourself on national TV? He goes, yeah, I did. He goes, we had the whole family come over to the house and watch it Memorial Day morning. And I said, what'd they think? Willie said, my grandkids don't look at me the same way anymore. Willie wasn't always forthcoming like most World War II veterans. His family was not fully aware of all the pain and the suffering that he went through. Captured at the Battle of the Bulge, the first things the Germans did is they took his boots, they took his coat, they took his gloves, they took his hat. And I said, wow, they wanted you to freeze to death? He goes, no, they didn't want me to freeze to death. He goes, it was the Battle of the Bulge, it was the end of the war. The Germans didn't have it. The Germans didn't have gloves, they didn't have coats, they didn't have boots. They used ours. He harbored no hatred, no animosity. Those grandsons that I was telling you about, when he says grandkids don't look at me the same way any day, they couldn't understand their dad. They could not understand why they had the best sledding hill in Clark County, their farm. And every morning after big snow, of course they'd cancel schools, there was Willie Taylor out on the tractor plowing the road so that all the local area kids could get up on that sledding hill, grooming the field. And they could not understand why he did not stick around to be thanked, to watch the joy, because he'd getting up in the dark. And I could not believe it. I said, your dad had horrific frostbite from World War II. I said, when you suffer from nerve damage, like he did, any cold exposure, it just kills you. I said, the fact that he got up and plowed those roads, I don't understand. I mean, you talk about a giving person, but I know why he went back in the house and didn't watch all the kids enjoy the hill. That's a generation of people. World War II veterans. And Your Honor, you're really going to enjoy this. Leonard Lloyd, he enlisted on his 17th birthday. The reason why he enlisted on his 17th birthday is a judge gave him no choice. Well, he did give him a choice. You either go to prison or you're going to go serve in the military. He took part in 4 invasions. 3 of those invasions, he was on a ship, a troop ship, 3 of those invasions over in Europe. Went through the Panama Canal. 4th invasion was over in the Pacific. It literally was a world war. And they won, and I had the honor of getting them to their memorial. That video that you're seeing right now was the beginning of one of the darkest, most miserable times in my life. It was horrific. Because what happened is when that ran, calls were coming in from all over the United States of America. Everybody wanted to go on an honor flight trip. Worse yet, every daughter wanted her daddy on an honor flight trip. Oh man, you talk about pit bulls. A daughter defending, supporting her daddy? So what do you mean he can't go on an honor flight? I said, ma'am, you live in Oklahoma. We don't have an honor flight in Oklahoma. My dad has 3 Purple Hearts. Ma'am, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Jeff Hirsch, when he did the interview, he said, wait a minute, you flew 12 veterans. How many you got on the waiting list? 160. How many died before your first flight? 8. He just shook his head. He goes, Earl, there's no way. I mean, this is going to be impossible. And that's why I said, I know it's insurmountable, but at least I'm going to do whatever I can. I want to be able to sleep at night. To say I did everything that I possibly could. And it got worse. More phone calls, I said, just turn in an application. Hopefully, eventually, we're going to have an honor flight out of Portland, Maine. And we'll have an honor flight out of Dallas. Turn in an application. At the end of the first year, we had over 800 applications from all over the world. And then every once in a while, the phone would ring. And they'd say, go ahead and take my dad's name off the list. He died. There was no sleeping for me. I said, we got to work hard. I got to write more impassioned letters. Let me go ahead and write a letter to Lockheed Martin, to Procter & Gamble, maybe the Ford Motor Company. I was sending out, I'd work all day long at the VA, spend all night long typing up these letters, come home after work, no responses. No yes, no no. So I said, well, maybe I sent it to the, I just kept sending out letters. Nothing. We flew 12 on the first month, we flew 14 the second month, we flew 16 the next month. Word got around, we had more volunteer pilots, but there was no way. And these daughters were saying, well, when do you think my dad's going to go on a trip? I don't know when your dad's going on a trip. And I got so angry at God because I really believed that God had put this on my heart to do. And I knew to follow God's calling, things like that. I'm not a religious person. Honestly, I'm not, because I don't believe God wants my religion. He wants me. He doesn't necessarily want my religion. He wants me. So in my communication with God, I'm pleading. Well, I was pleading with Procter & Gamble, Ford. Then I started pleading with God. How could you do this to these incredible men and women? They waited 60 years to have a memorial. These are the men and women that collectively and literally saved the world. All of Europe's free. All the Pacific is free. Thank God America is free. They did this. They saved your chosen people, God, and you're turning your back on them? You're leaving me with this bag? It's too much. I can't believe you're doing this. I was so angry and bitter, and I cried out to God. And I don't know if God speaks in baritone or bass, but he told me that night, he said, Earl, I love them more than you can possibly fathom. I love them more than you will ever comprehend. Basically, he said, we got this. You just need to keep showing up. You just need to keep stepping to the plate. Yeah, you might strike out. Yeah, you might get a hit. You might get hit by the ball, but keep stepping up to the plate. I love them more than you can comprehend. And I went to bed, and my wife, bless her heart, I'd go to bed at like 3, 4 o'clock in the morning, have to get up at 6, and she could sense in me that I was very, very happy. So I got into bed, and I'm just laying there, and she goes, so what happened? I said, it's great. Everything's great. What, did you hear from Procter & Gamble? Was it the Ford Motor Company? Who'd you hear from? I said, I heard from God. She laughed. I said, yeah. I knew everything was going to be okay. I got up in front of a group of graduates. They were all academy graduates up in Wisconsin. Every winter time, they all go on break. They said, would you come speak to our graduating class? So you had all these West Point, you had all these Annapolis, and you had all these really good-looking Air Force Academy, and then Merchant Marine, Coast Guard. So they got up there, and I talked this talk, and I said, does anybody have any questions? And this one cadet, plebe, whatever they call themselves, raised a hand and said, so how did the program change after you'd heard from God? And I said, nothing changed, but then everything changed. Nothing changed in that. Like, suddenly there wasn't, $8,000 in our account. But what changed was I was getting nowhere with nobody anywhere. Nobody was getting back with me. It was the darkest time of my life. But I had God. I knew God was with me. Because if you ever sit down and write, all right, these are all the things that Earl can do on his own. That's a very short list. These are all the things that Earl cannot do on his own. You start writing that on a roll of toilet paper, and you would write forever on all the things that Earl can't do. Now, get out paper and pencil. These are all the things that Earl can't do with God. There's nothing on that list. These are all the things that you can't do without God. There's nothing on that list. Nothing. This is a celebration, a time to move forward, a time to garner as much knowledge and foundation and head forth. And if there's anything that I would suggest, recommend, is acknowledge the fact that God has your back. God definitely has your back. He's had my back forever. I didn't realize it. I didn't always talk to him. Kind of remind me when I was flying. When I said that flying's kind of dangerous time to time, I get flight followed. If you're flying around, you want to talk to the air traffic controllers. And I said, Indy Center, this is 8 Alpha Victor, with you at 3,000 feet, whatever. I say, fine, good. We were actually flying over Columbus, southern Columbus, Rickenbacker Air Force Base, close to Rickenbacker Air Force Base. I'm just tootling along. A lot of people don't like flight following because they don't want to be told, turn right, turn left. They want to get up there and enjoy. I like flight following. I'll tell you why. Get this radio call. 8 Alpha Victor, this is Columbus approach. You have traffic at your 10 o'clock position, 3,000 feet, on a heading which was coming towards me. And I said, Roger, scanning now, no joy. I didn't see anything, which is a bad sign. Very crystal clear day. Tell me I got somebody out. And it comes back, 8 Alpha Victor, traffic is now 5 miles out. Do you have them? I said, no joy, still looking. When you can't see the traffic that's out there, very ominous, because that traffic is coming right at you. Because if that traffic's going to pass ahead of you, they're going across the screen. If they're going to pass behind you, they're going across the screen. When they're coming at you, you do not see them. 8 Alpha Victor, do you have traffic? They're 2 miles out. Negative. Tally-ho, I have them, braking right. And I could see, same altitude, same everything, and I went ahead and I broke right. And they passed by. I saw the whites of his eyes. There wasn't any of that, but I saw him, and we were going to go boom. When I think about God, when I think about my relationship with God, that's air traffic control. Telling me where the hazards are, what to look out for, when to be on my toes. I got that. And the closer I drew, the more that I knew that God had my back. And when God told me that night that I love them more than you can possibly ever fathom, we had 160 on the waiting list. I went to bed with joy in my heart that I hadn't had for over a year. To this day, over 300,000 veterans have been to their memorial. 300,000! We have honor flight hubs in 126 cities all across the nation. God wasn't lying to me. And he's not lying to you when I tell you that he loves all of you more than you can possibly comprehend, and he has your back. In moving forward, in progressing out of this auditorium, all of us moving forward with our day, if God has your back, do yourself a tremendous favor. Step to the side. Let God step out. Let God be your point man. He's been my point man. I've been following him. I'm waiting for him to lie to me. I'm waiting for him to screw up. I'm waiting for him to lead me down a wrong trail. It doesn't happen. It does not happen. Thank you so much for letting me share my heart and my passion. Thank you all for listening. Nobody fell asleep. Thank you very much. God bless you all.
Isn't that great? Isn't that wonderful? As you know, past president, founder of Honor Flight. He explained it all to you. And just an indication, really, of how one person can make all the difference in the world. And it started with a vision, and he followed up. And you can tell he's very passionate and very emotional about it for obvious reasons. But thank you for that message and for being here today. Yes, sir. I will say one thing, though. When you turned to me and you said, hey, the judge gave me a choice on whether or not to join the military or go to jail or whatever it was, I have to share a personal story, and I will just for a moment. But same thing happened to me in 1980. Not that I had to go to jail or join the Army, but I was in line. It's before you were even issued your uniforms and before you got all your shots and everything, your haircut and all that. We still had our civilian clothes on. They give you a field jacket, which is the old Vietnam style olive drab single color, a pile cap because it was in January, a pair of gloves with inserts, leather gloves with wool inserts, and a scarf. That's all you had. And then your civilian clothes, blue jeans, whatever you had on, tennis shoes. So you go to the, we used to call it a mess hall. I don't think that's politically correct anymore. Dining facility, is that what it's called? Dining mess hall. You go to the mess hall and you're waiting outside, and it's a one-story old World War II era wooden mess hall, Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri. It's cold. You're standing outside waiting to go inside. And so you're talking because you don't have any protocol yet. You haven't learned drill and ceremony, right? So you're just talking, and the person in front of me, the person behind me, we're telling you, where are you from? What state are you from? Are you regular Army, you National Guard, you Army Reserve? And the person in front of the two of us said, regular Army. Oh, well, I was National Guard at the time. Behind me, I can't remember if he was regular Army or Army Reserve or National Guard. It didn't make any difference because the person in front of us said, I'm going to go and be a combat engineer. I said, well, good for you. That's what we were all being trained for. And I said, well, why did you join the Army? The judge gave me a choice. So it wasn't really all that long ago, was it? He could either go to jail or join the regular Army. You can't do that anymore. You get in big trouble if you do that. You can't do that. But that really wasn't all that far ago, was it? Really wasn't all that far ago. But thank you. What a tough act to follow there with Mr. Morse. Now it's the reason why we're here, and that is to recognize our graduate, John Loiseau. Mr. Loiseau, step up here, please. I'm going to give the floor to you in just a moment. And Rick, if you have the appropriate recognition, and then Mr. Morse, I'll ask you here in just a moment at the appropriate time to give the coin to our graduate. John Loiseau, I like your jump wings.
Thank you very much.
Joined our program in August of 2022, and you're doing the math, you're saying, well, that's just a little bit over a year and a half. Yeah, he did a good job. It's a self-paced program, as I mentioned before. Went through all 4 phases. Here he is today. Served in the Army. 16 Sierra. Who knows what a 16 Sierra is in the Army? I had no clue what a 16 Sierra was. You don't know RBGO back there, Paige? I didn't either. Has to do with air defense artillery, yes, doesn't it? Man's pad crew member. I've said it before and I'll say it again. I mean, our veterans, obviously it's a world, and everything in that world has to be done by a certain military occupational specialty. And Mr. Loiseau's was man's pad crew member. Man portable air defense system, which is essentially a lightweight anti-aircraft weapon. Is that right?
A bazooka that can shoot.
A bazooka. There you go. He enlisted for 6 years, spent nearly 3 years on active duty at Fort Bragg, now Fort Liberty, North Carolina. Mr. Loiseau is going to move very shortly to Washington State. His fiance, he's engaged to be married, lives in Washington State. Mr. Loiseau has already planned and has a job lined up for him in Washington State. Here in this area, he was a substitute teacher and a coach, also ran in many, many marathons. He would throw that in our face every once in a while. But really the thing that you threw in my face is when you gave me this book. It looked like War and Peace. It was called Command and Control. He said, I recommend this, Judge. Why don't you read it? 632 pages. 632 pages. Now, I looked at it, and the last 133 pages are footnotes. That sounds like a really good reading right there. But I can tell you it didn't give you any advantage in moving through the program by giving me that book. But I'll read it one of these days, and I'll give it back to you. One of these days. But Mr. Loiseau has done a great job. And it's time to recognize his hard work, dedication, commitment to the program, not giving up, and being here today. And that's what this ceremony is about. You're lucky because you're a Lone Ranger today. We've had as many as 4 graduate at one time, but that's okay. Whether it's one person, whether it's 4, whether it's 40, we're going to have a ceremony for you. So please ask Mr. Morse to join us up here with the coin. We're going to give you the framed certificate of graduation, and then Mr. Morse is going to present you with the graduate coin. The Warren County Veterans Court Certificate of Graduation is awarded to John Shearer Loiso for his successful completion of the Veterans Court program given today in Lebanon, Ohio, March 6, 2024, and signed by me. Congratulations, sir.
Thank you, sir. Yeah, the little ones.
I was just whispered in my ear that Dr. Taylor was also a mentor of yours. Dr. Taylor, stand up. It's graduation day for you as well. That's the first I heard that. Mr. Loiso, he's a teacher, so he's not going to resist the opportunity to say a few words. So the floor is yours, sir.
Thank you very much, sir. First of all, the people I want to thank. Mom, Dad, my best buddy Bill. Just came in yesterday. Surprised me from New Jersey. Paid his own way. Just flew down. Been buddies since high school. Played ball together. Doc Taylor, thank you so much. You're a hero. God bless you. Joe, do a lot of stuff. You're a great man. Thank you very much. All the judges, thank you for being here. Great speech. Thank you. Donna, you're the machine that makes this thing work. You are. And thank you so much for everything. I'm blessed. And the one thing I wanted to say was that the military works when you go to basic training. The first thing you learn is to have everybody's back. And you all have my back. Every one of you. When I was at my lowest point, when I was being dragged through the garbage, you picked me up and you got me here. And I remember the first day I came in and was accepted in by Judge Loxley into this court. All that ran through my head was failure is not an option. We will complete this with no problem. Operation complete.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Well said. We have, as I mentioned before, volunteers and volunteer groups. One of the groups that was started to assist the veterans in this court to solicit and raise money was a group started by Fran and Jim Westling from Loveland, Ohio, called Project Rise Above, or PRA for short. And they do that. They solicit and raise money for the benefit of our veterans who cannot get money from any other source. And sometimes our veterans are down and out. And they need that extra source of income. But at graduation time, Project Rise Above likes to recognize our graduating veteran and veterans. So now I'm going to turn the floor over to Michelle White, who is one of the board members of Project Rise Above. Michelle, do you want to come forward and make a presentation?
Project Rise Above we're just a grassroots organization, and the purpose, like Judge Loxley said, is to step in and help the veterans when other resources have been exhausted. And today we are so honored to be able to be here and have this platform. May I please ask the Project Rise Above board members to stand up?
Good job. Good job.
So, sir, thank you. Congratulations on your success through this journey. This is just a small token on your success.
Thank you.
Thank you for that, Michelle. Similarly, there's another group spearheaded by Robin Kiley, who's seated over here to your far left. She's involved in an organization called Stand to Serve, And Robin had asked for a minute or two to also give a presentation to our graduating veterans. So Robin, come up here, please, and I'll turn the floor over to you.
Mr. Luizo, congratulations. As a voice of our community, we gathered here today to honor you and your hard work, dedication, and discipline you demonstrated in your military career and in your graduation from Veterans Court today. You are on the path of righteousness. Most importantly, I come as a chaplain, a humble servant of our Lord Jesus Christ, to bless you, your family, your fiancée, Heather, the work of your hands, the call on your life, that all may be blessed by God Almighty with the spiritual riches available to us all in our Lord Jesus Christ. I've enclosed a daily devotion called Jesus Calling. Please read it, meditate on it, follow it. It contains the wisdom and the blessings of God. The Word of God is the rock beneath our feet when the storms of life blow and present its challenges. It's a devotion I've been reading with my family for over a decade. The daily devotions remain relevant year after year, for each day brings its own challenges. Please remember that your family, those of blood, and those who have walked with you today in this court, they've walked with you through your adversity, and they will remain in your life after this graduation. The community of Warren County is with you always, praying for you, your fiancée Heather, and your family. And most importantly, our Lord Jesus Christ is with you always, strengthening, protecting, guiding you as you walk on his path of righteousness and truth. Our Lord never forsakes nor fails anyone who calls upon his name. Peace and grace be with you and your family always in our Lord, and thank you for your service to our nation. I would also like to read a poem that was written for a veteran who had served honorably, who lived not far from this location in our county. I know a hero not far from here. I'm better for having known him. He wears the wounds of courage on his heart. No one can see, feel, nor own it. The weight of loss leaves him with quiet sighs and colors the lens of his vision. Always willing to stand and serve neighbor and God, few in words, but his actions show it. I know a hero not far from here. I am better for having known him. No complaints, no excuses do I ever hear, though body and soul bear a cross of service. I hope we never forget these men. Silent and true are they. Come and go as the days and years unfold. Yet the content of their service remains. Conscience and God demand we remember, lest our ways disgrace our Lord and their valor. Raise a candle to honor their courage. Live life like their sacrifice matters. Thank you, and God bless. Thank you, Judge.
Thank you, Robin. Mr. Loizo, coming to the end of the ceremony. Congratulations to you. Remember what you've learned about yourself in this program and go out and do the extraordinary things that we know that you're capable of doing. Always remember you're not alone. I think you know that. Because of your military service, there's always another veteran, a relative of a veteran, and supporters of veterans, confident in your ability to affect the future of this country in a positive way, and always thanking you for your selfless service and sacrifice to our country.